In some of the stories I post on my channel, I want you to fully immerse yourself in the atmosphere and events as much as possible. This story is told by someone recounting the events that happened to him. The events of the story occurred recently, in 2020 to be precise. There was a 17-year-old young man named Sam who decided to go on a camping trip for just one night. Sam, of course, was a fan of outdoor activities like camping, hiking, and all that sort of stuff. He was used to these kinds of trips, but this time, he decided to venture into a place that everyone had been avoiding, which is the Arizona mountain range. This mountain range was infamous for being one of the scariest places you could possibly camp. It was surrounded by numerous terrifying rumors, and to this day, no one has been able to deny or disprove these rumors. People were generally too scared to go near this area. The fear stemmed from the mysterious deaths that occurred there. Some people, when trying to determine the cause of death, found that there was no apparent reason, just that their hearts stopped all of a sudden. And with that, this mountain range became known as the most terrifying place imaginable. Despite all these rumors and stories, Sam decided to take on the challenge and go to this place. Sam didn't believe in everything he heard. He wasn't one to buy into rumors, dismissing them as mere folklore passed around by people. There was no way anything could stop him from embarking on this adventure. The trip to these mountains was 12 kilometers in total, 6 kilometers there and 6 kilometers back. He contacted a friend to accompany him. But when the day of the trip arrived, his friend apologized and said, "I'm sorry, I can't make it." At this point, he considered it a sign that he should stop, but being a very rational person who didn't believe in such superstitions, he decided he had to go and follow through with his plan to visit this place. Even if he had to go alone, especially since he knew the area well. On the day of the trip, as soon as Sam started preparing to leave, unexpected things began happening. Sam left his house very early to make sure he could start his journey in the daylight and under the sun's illumination. But that day, the road felt longer than usual. The streets were more crowded than ever, with traffic being unusually heavy, and time seemed to be slipping away quickly, as if time itself was racing against him. None of this really fazed Sam. He told himself, "I'm in a hurry, so it's natural that I'd feel time moving fast, and I'm just more aware of the traffic and these details." Time passed, and Sam didn't reach the starting point until 5:45 p.m., just before sunset. This was a terrible time to begin a camping trip because, once the sun sets, the place would be as dark as the depths of the sea. Any mistake in such darkness could turn the situation into a disaster. And then, at that moment, one of the rumors he had heard crossed Sam's mind. The saying that, "It's the place that chooses when you go to it, not you who chooses when to enter it." But Sam quickly shut his eyes and shook his head as if trying to shake these thoughts out of his mind. He thought to himself, "Sure, I might not reach the spot I want before the sun sets, but I'm quick and light on my feet. I can walk 2 or 3 kilometers and find a suitable place to camp before the pitch-black darkness falls." With that, he decided to take an uncertain risk and try his luck. He gathered his courage and took the first step on the trail. At that moment, he truly felt as if time was racing against him once again. The 10 minutes were passing as if they were half a minute, and suddenly, as he entered the trail, he found himself surrounded by darkness before he could reach any place suitable for camping. All he had with him was a flashlight to light the path ahead. But it was a small light, so Sam was almost blind, only able to see a few steps ahead with the flashlight. This is when things got serious. Sam started hearing strange noises. Suddenly, it was as if someone was calling his name, whispers close to his ear. Yet in reality, there was nothing around him, and the place was completely silent. Sam decided to focus more on his path and walk faster to reach the nearest safe point. But then, in an instant, Sam gasped loudly because he suddenly realized he was about to fall off a high rock, one he hadn't even realized he was walking on. He caught himself at the last moment. Had he fallen from that height, he would have suffered serious injuries and broken bones, and no one would have known where he was until it was too late. He took a deep breath and thanked God that he noticed in time, especially since the nearest help was 24 kilometers away, and the phone signal was almost non-existent. If he decided to cancel the trip at this point and turn back, none of the return paths would be safe. There wasn't a single safe way to get back. On top of that, no one knew exactly where he was. At this moment, Sam realized that he had made the wrong decision from the start. He thought to himself, if I keep walking, things will only get worse. So, he decided to stop right where he was and camp in any spot around him, not wanting to risk it any further. He turned on his flashlight and started shining it around the area to explore the surroundings and find a suitable place to settle down. He noticed a spot just a few steps away that looked like it could work for camping. So, he walked over to it. When he got there, he found it to be an excellent spot, with an old fire pit, indicating that someone else had camped there before. The place was very suitable, and Sam felt relieved. He thought he had found the solution. He would sleep there, end the trip peacefully, and head back in the morning. Sam hadn't brought a tent on purpose. All he had with him was a sleeping bag and a simple cover, like a tarp or curtain, to cover the area above his head and body in case it rained while he was sleeping. After setting up his camp and lighting the fire, Sam opened his can of beans and sat down to have dinner. But as he ate, he started to feel that something wasn't right, something felt off. His heart felt heavy, and he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He lifted his head and looked around at the trees surrounding him, but because the fire's light was close, he couldn't see far since his eyes were focused on the fire's glow. Beyond that light was darkness. Moreover, his vision was limited by the dense forest of tall pine trees, which blocked his view entirely. At that moment, Sam tried to convince himself that there was nothing wrong, that these were just his nerves playing tricks on him, and that he didn't need to dwell on these feelings and illusions. As he was thinking this and trying to calm himself, a marble-sized stone suddenly flew and landed near his feet. At that point, Sam was sure that all his fears were real, that the unsettling feeling he had was logical, and that something was out there. This was no mere illusion or figment of his imagination. He began to look around frantically, glancing to the right, the left, up, and down, filled with fear. But his vision was weak and nearly non-existent, and his heart was racing. He didn't know what was happening or what had caused it. Every now and then, he tried to peer into the trees, hoping to see if someone or something was there. But after 15 minutes, there was no sign of anything, no sound, no movement, nothing to indicate that there was another animal or human being in the area. So, he tried to calm himself down again, reasoning that maybe he had kicked the stone with his foot without noticing, or perhaps it had fallen from the tree above. In any case, he convinced himself that what had happened was perfectly natural, and he didn't want to overreact. After a while, he managed to calm himself down, convinced that there was nothing wrong. He returned to his sleeping bag, secured the tarp above him, and went to sleep. A few hours later, Sam woke up again, his heart pounding with fear, his chest feeling tight, even though he hadn't seen or heard anything at all. But he was certain that something was around him. As he focused on his surroundings, he heard the sound of leaves crunching, as if someone or something was stepping on them a few meters away from him. He couldn't tell whether it was a person or an animal, but whatever it was clearly moving toward him. After about 30 seconds, the sounds began to fade and disappear. Sam tried to convince himself that whatever had been approaching had gone away, but just to be safe, he wanted to grab his flashlight and shine it in the direction the sound had come from. He reached out to grab the flashlight, and that's when the shock hit him. It wasn't there. Where could it have gone? He searched everywhere for it but couldn't find it. He was sure he had fallen asleep with the flashlight right next to him, so he was baffled by how it could have disappeared so suddenly. At that moment, the fear and anxiety rushed back, because the only way the flashlight could have disappeared was if someone had taken it and moved it. But there was no one there. How could the flashlight have vanished? Sam got out of his sleeping bag and started searching the area around him, looking carefully toward the spot where the sound had come from. To his surprise, he saw the flashlight lying just a few meters away, which meant someone had been there, watching him while he slept. Sam's heart began to race, his breathing became shallow, and terror gripped him so strongly that he felt like he might throw up. He thought to himself, whoever did this is trying to lure me away from here, into the darkness. This is definitely a trap. They want me to leave my campsite so they can kill me without anyone knowing. At that point, Sam knew he had to stay alert and vigilant, paying close attention to everything around him. He put on his boots and grabbed his knife. He said to himself, "There's no way I'm moving from this spot before daylight." He tried to make the fire burn brighter and bigger, not wanting to go near the flashlight because he knew it was a trap. If he attempted to go toward it, they would surely attack him. So, he increased the fire's intensity to illuminate the area more. He decided never to approach the flashlight or even get close to it, convinced it was definitely a trap to lure him away. At this point, the sounds grew louder, coming and going as if someone was approaching him, then suddenly disappearing, or rushing towards him as if they were about to pounce, only to vanish into thin air. He heard whispers, laughter, some crying, and threats. Every time the fire dimmed, he felt them getting closer to him. But whenever he reignited the flames, the sounds would retreat until it was 3 o'clock in the morning. By that time, Sam's firewood was running out. If he didn't go into the forest to gather more, the fire would die out, and then who knows what could happen. But he said there was no way he was moving from his spot, especially since their main goal was to get him to leave his campsite and the fire. As the fire gradually dwindled, Sam tried to mentally prepare himself for what would happen when it finally went out, knowing that without it, they would close in on him. Eventually, the fire burned down to its lowest point, and the sounds grew louder, with footsteps drawing nearer and nearer. They were now just 3 meters away from him, hiding behind the trees that surrounded him, but he couldn't see them because of the darkness and the dense trees. Sam was effectively blind, but he knew they were standing there, waiting for him to make just one move. Hours passed, and Sam started to imagine going over to see what was behind those trees. But just thinking about it made him tremble with fear. They were already watching him, their gaze fixed on him, their only goal to get him to take that one single step out of his camp. But Sam remained resolute. He didn't take a single step outside his camp, disappointing whatever was out there. As the sun began to rise, he heard them running away, trying to hide as if the sunlight was burning them. Still, Sam didn't move, thinking it might be another trap. Sam didn't move until the sun had fully risen and its light became strong. After that, he quickly packed his things and ran back to the parking lot. He got into his car and drove away, keeping his speed at around 30, and continued driving until he reached a gas station. There, he finally stopped to catch his breath and calm himself down. Finally, he got out of the car to get something to drink. When he returned to the car, he noticed that on the dust of his car, it was written, "Sleep well." Sam stood there in silence, thinking to himself, what would have happened if I had gone to get the flashlight? So, folks, I want you to share your thoughts. What do you think would have happened? Would Sam have survived? What might have occurred if he had gone toward the flashlight? Let me know your predictions. We've reached the end of the video. Don't forget to like the video if you haven't already. And if you haven't subscribed yet, my friend, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.